Alright, what's up everybody? We're back with another edition of Everyday Hoops. Hope you guys are having a good one. I had to use a soundboard because we are here, live face to face. So today the draft lottery is today, while also having, of course, more NBA games I'm going to be watching. But I thought the draft lottery starts before the games today. So I was thinking, you know what? Why not do a live reaction video to the draft lottery? You know, um, well, of course, it's very important. Obviously, we haven't really thought about a lot of these teams that are eliminated from the playoffs in a very long time, obviously, because they didn't make the playoffs. But today's a big day for a lot of these teams. What draft position they're going to be in, all the stuff like that. So we're going to react to it live here. I'm going to get my thoughts on as we see it, my thoughts on a lot of different things surrounding the draft here in today's video. Thank you guys for the views on the videos and the shorts recently. I really appreciate it. And if you do get the content around here, consider subscribing, like, turn notifications, all stuff like that. I'd really appreciate it. It really helps out a lot. And join the membership. If you want to learn more about the membership, there's a video on my channel explaining all of it. You can go back and watch that. Link to my Twitter, TikTok, stuff like that in the description down below. And don't waste any more of your time. Let's get right into it. Wow, this is very weird doing it in person. So we still have a couple minutes for the draft lottery. It's not 3 o'clock Eastern time yet. So I'm going to give a little bit of pre-thoughts, before we go into the draft lottery. And excuse the hat. You don't want to see my hair right now. Really, you do not. So I got the lottery odds pulled up right here on Tankathon. And yeah, so right now, Detroit obviously, so it's Detroit, Washington, Charlotte, and Portland have the highest chance to have the top four picks. Obviously, then you have San Antonio, and then you have Toronto as well. But a lot of these picks aren't fully safe. So Toronto's pick is not protected. Toronto's pick is only protected 1 through 6. So if Toronto falls out of the top 6, that pick goes to San Antonio, which could be big because San Antonio can now have 2 lottery picks coming in next year and maybe can use those to facilitate a trade. You also have the Utah Jazz's pick, which is protecting the top 10. And if that pick falls outside the top 10, that pick goes to OKC. Houston as well. Houston's pick is only protected 1 through 10, I want to say. So, yeah, it's protected 1 through 4. So most likely that Rockets pick is actually going to go to the Oklahoma City Thunder unless it ends up in the top 4. But that's okay because the Rockets also have the Brooklyn Nets pick this year. So the Brooklyn Nets pick is actually going to be the Houston Rockets pick wherever it lands. That's an unprotected pick. And then the last protection thing is with the Golden State Warriors, where their pick actually is going to go to Portland no matter what happens. I want to say, right? 2 through 4. Actually, no. Okay. So Golden State's pick is only protected 1 through 4. So unless the Golden State's pick jumps up to the top 4, then that pick is going to go to the Portland Trailblazers most likely. So Portland potentially could have 2 lottery picks. San Antonio could potentially have 2 lottery picks. OKC potentially could have 2 lottery picks this year, which is crazy to think about. And yeah, man, I'm very, very excited for this draft lottery. Now, there's been a lot of talk about this draft in particular as being a weak draft, quote unquote, which there's some little bit of truth to it in a sense of, yes, there might not be there might not be an Anthony Edwards in this draft. There might not be a Zion. There might not be a Victor Wembanyama. There might not be a superstar top 10 player, you know, 28 point per game scorer type guy in this draft, franchise changing guy in this draft. That might be true. But I think this is a draft full of really good complementary role players. I think there's a lot of good players in this draft that I think are going to be able to contribute to teams either right away or be valuable assets to these teams. You know, so it's a very interesting draft for a lot of these teams. There's of course a couple teams in this draft that I'm very interested to see what they do in a sense of teams that maybe need that Anthony Edwards type guy. This might not be that draft, so teams like maybe the Washington Wizards or something like that might not love this draft. But if you're a team maybe like the Pelicans, or you're a team like the Rockets, or you're a team like that, where you're right in the playoff mix and maybe need a little bit more help building out your bench and your role players and stuff, I think this is a perfect draft for a lot of teams and for a lot of the playoff teams as well. I think this is a perfect draft for a lot of playoff teams like the Milwaukee Bucks or something like that that can add in young talent on rookie deals that can contribute to this team. So I think that's a very interesting draft for that perspective of it. So that's why I'm very interested to see what this draft lottery comes to. And next time you see me, the draft lottery will be starting. Alright, so it's about to start. I'm about to start seeing the picks and stuff. By the way, if I'm looking, I'm watching on my phone. By the way, so if I'm looking down like this, it's because I'm watching it on my phone because my TV's over there, and it's just been weird angling, like being like sideways like this the whole time, you know. So got it on my phone. That's why I'm looking down. But yeah, let's see. Let's see what happens. All right, the guys coming to the podium. Okay, here we go. We're gonna start it right now. Here we go. Here we go. Let's see what's going. Let's see what goes down. Mark Tatum. Shout out to Mark Tatum. So, all right. So I'm gonna try to keep talking so there's not a lot of dead space. 14th. Portland via Golden State. All right, yep. So Portland's gonna potentially have two lottery picks this year. Scoot trying not to hold it, trying to hold in his laugh. 13th goes to the Sacramento Kings. I think that's all right. I think that's yep. That checks out. That checks out. All right. 12 goes to OKC from Houston. So Houston is not gonna have two lottery picks. So OKC gets Houston's pick. Well, one of Houston's picks. Houston's original pick. 11 goes to the Chicago Bulls. Yep. All right. Bulls stay at 11. Number 10 goes to the Utah Jazz. Utah Jazz. Okay, so Utah fell. So that means Atlanta jumped. That also means OKC only gets one pick, not two picks. So that means Atlanta jumps. And so does Houston. 9 goes to Memphis. And Houston does too. Houston jumps. So that means Houston keeps their pick. Well, yeah, well, that's the problem. San Antonio goes to 8, so that means Toronto doesn't get a pick. Toronto loses their pick. San Antonio is going to get 2 lottery picks. San Antonio's at 8. At 7, it's going to go to the Portland Trail Blazers. So Portland gets 2 lottery picks, but they don't get a top 4. They get 7 and 14. So that means San Antonio jumps up to the top 4. So that means, oh my God. That means one of Detroit or Washington isn't getting a top 5 pick. The Hornets get 6. Hornets fall to 6. That means one of Detroit or Washington is not going to get a top 4 pick. And number 5 is going to go to Detroit. Detroit won 14 games and gets the 5th pick. Oh my gosh. So that means the top 4 is Washington, San Antonio, Houston, and Atlanta. Houston's going to have another top 4 pick. Oh my God. Wow. Wow, 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 wow. Wow. Okay. So, quick thoughts. Dang, I wish they could kept it up so I can see. So, wow. So that means, so Detroit's the worst record in the league. And so, didn't that happen last year? That's happened last year. Detroit only won, what, 17 games last year and ended up at number 5? It happened again this year. Detroit only wins 14 games and they end up with the number 5 pick. That changes. Wow. 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 Dang. Right? I swear that happened last year because Sarr was the 5th pick. Yeah, Sarr was the 5th pick. So 2 years in a row, Detroit finishes with the worst record in the league, and they don't get a top 4 pick. Man, so that tanking. That's what tanking does. Adam Silver said it. Adam Silver's like, you guys want to tank? Okay, go ahead. You guys want to lose 30 games in a row? All right, watch this. So that means Washington's up with the top 4 pick. So only one of the original 4 teams that are in the top 4 get their picks. So that means Washington, San Antonio is going to get another top 4 pick. So San Antonio now has the 4th pick and the 8th pick. So San Antonio has 2 top 10 picks now. That's going to be big. Atlanta, which that's very interesting. Atlanta moves up into the top 4 as well. So now that could change some things too. So now Atlanta can get a good wing. And then the last team is the Rockets. The Rockets end up with another top 4 pick. Because the rich just get richer. The Houston Rockets end up getting a top 4 pick. And what did they? Yeah, they still had their pick from Brooklyn as well. No, this is the Brooklyn pick. Their original. So Houston only has 1 pick. That pick ended up going to OKC. So OKC still has a lottery pick. The Rockets pick ends up in the top 4. So that's the Brooklyn Nets would have had a top 4 pick. Wow. So the Rockets end up getting another top 4 pick, already having Alperen Sengun, Jabari Smith, Amen Thompson, Tari Eason, Jalen Green. They already, and now they add another top 4 pick coming in. That could be, look at that could be Donovan Clingan. That could be Zachary Recycher, depending on. Oh my man, wow. And the Wizards were the team that desperately needed a top 4 pick, even though this is maybe not the best draft for them in terms of talent and potential wise, but they desperately needed a top pick. So yeah, that's interesting. So wow, okay, so that's the possibility. So Houston, if Houston gets another number 1 overall pick, well not another, but if the Rockets get the number 1 overall pick, man, that means they can add what Zachary Recycher, so you can have a lot of Amen, Jalen Green, Zachary, Jabari, and Alperen Şengün. The Hawks, if the Hawks get a top 4 pick, that's interesting because then they could have Zachary or they can go Alex Sarr, which would be interesting to have a young big man in there. The Rockets, the Wizards probably could take one of whoever, honestly, Zachary or Alex Sarr or whoever else they want. And then the last team is San Antonio. San Antonio can end up getting a top pick. Imagine the Spurs end up with number 1 again, and they get Alex Sarr, Vic Wemby, and Alex Sarr back for that'd be the new Tim Duncan and David Robinson, Alex Sarr and Wemby. Wow. Okay. That this is interesting. That's really interesting. So we had three teams move up into the top 4, and one of them was a 10 team in the 10. Atlanta. What is Atlanta's odds? Atlanta had a 14% chance to end up in the top 4, and they ended up in the top 4. Houston's pick had a 20% chance to end up in the top 4, end up in the top 4. Wow. Okay, and then San Antonio had a 42% chance, and of course Washington had tied for the highest odds, and they end up getting there. All right, so now let's see who ends up with the number 1 overall pick, top 4. So it's Washington, San Antonio, Houston, Atlanta. Okay, here we go. We're about to get it going. Unless I think they're going to interview somebody maybe for a minute. I don't know. The NBA is the king of milk and stuff. So yeah, let's see what happens. Landry Fields is smiling. Landry Fields is like, let's call. He already has his GM mind rolling right now. He knows. He's like, I'm trading Trae Young. Okay, here we go. The number 4 pick is gonna go to the Spurs. So the Spurs have 4 and 8. Okay. The 3rd pick is gonna go to the Rockets. So the Hawks and the Wizards. The Hawks might get the Rockets end up number 3. Number 2 is gonna go to the Wizards. The Atlanta Hawks have the number 1 overall pick in the draft. Is that the first time they've ever had number 1? Have they ever had a number 1 overall pick? I'm trying to think. So they're showing Alex Sarr might be an Atlanta Hawk. Zachary Recycher, you might be an Atlanta Hawk. So, wow, the Landry Field, the Atlanta Hawks. Wow. Okay. That does things a little bit. That changes some of their. You're seeing one. Hawks, no. 49 years. Most years between the number 1 overall picks, 49 in the modern draft era. So yeah, when's the last time the Hawks had a number 1 overall pick? I'm sure they're probably saying it, but I'm not listening to it. Wow. I'm on their draft page. The last time the Atlanta Hawks were in the top 4 was 2018. They drafted Luka and traded him for a top 5 pick of Trae Young. 2007, they were top 3. They got Al Horford. 2006, top 5, Sheldon Williams. 2005, when's the last time? They've had a couple of top 3s, but when's your last number 1 pick? I'm in the 80s, and they still haven't had a number 1 overall pick. Last time they had a number 1 overall pick was 1975. They drafted David Thompson, but then didn't he not even go? Oh, no, he did. But then he went to the ABA. So really, they never really had a number 1 overall pick, because their guy that they picked number 1 went to the ABA. Didn't even play for them. And then before that, yeah, all the other picks, 7, 4, 2. Walk in 1955, they drafted Dick Ricketts, number 1 overall. This is only their, and then 1952 they had a number 1 overall pick. So this is only the 4th time in franchise history they had number 1. Their first time since the 70s, 1975, they had a number 1 overall pick. Wow, that's interesting. So that means Atlanta could go Alex Sarr would be nice. I like Alex Sarr there, or Zachary Recycher if you want to keep. Well, I don't know if they're keeping the guards together. I think one of those 2 guards is probably getting traded. But getting a guy like Alex Sarr in there kind of a big. Maybe if you want to keep Trae Young, him and Alex Sarr, so you can kind of move maybe Clint Capella out of the way. Maybe put Zachary. I mean Alex Sarr down there is interesting. Then what Washington gets number 2, so they get probably the leftover of whoever it is, either Zachary or Alex Sarr. And then number 3, the Rockets. That means the Rockets potentially could land a Donovan Clingan, potentially, or if Zachary Versailles is still there at number 3. That's okay. Wow. So Hawks get number 1. So we have Right. Yeah. All right. So I got the. Okay. So we have Hawks number 1. That's Hawks get number 1 overall pick. They can go in different directions at that point. That means they can either keep the pick, maybe get Alex Sarr. Well, they're gonna keep the pick, most likely. Why wouldn't they keep the pick? Get a guy like Alex Sarr, Zachary Versailles in there as a wing, and maybe if you could flip DeJounte or maybe even Trae Young and get some more assets back, or do you completely? I just saw on Twitter really briefly. Do you blow it all up? Trade Trae and DeJounte, build around Alex Sarr, Jalen Johnson, and whatever else you get back. That's an interesting play for Atlanta. But Atlanta's got a lot of options open now. Washington, they get number 2. They're probably gonna pick up if the Hawks do take whoever gets number 1. They take number 1. They're probably gonna get the other of Sarr or Seicher, most likely, or maybe they go another way. Maybe they go Rob Dillingham. I don't know. This is a draft where there's not really a lot of stuff concrete set in place right now. And then number 3, you got the Houston Rockets get another top 4 pick to already build around, to already add with Amen, Jalen Green, Alperen Sengun, Jabari Smith Jr., Tari Eason, Cam Whitmore, and now they get another top 4 pick, which they can add in another young piece or potentially maybe move it to go get something else. I don't know. I don't know what's out there. If they want to kind of go for a big hit, maybe package that pick in Jalen Green and go get something crazy. I don't know. I'm just going off the top of my head right now. And then number 4, you get the Spurs. So the Spurs are going to have 2 top 10 picks this year to add in with Wemby. So that's an interesting move as well for the Spurs. They can maybe get a guard at 4 and then at 8, or they can move number 4. And maybe if the Hawks are going into more of the bloat up phase, take 4 and go get Trae Young. Imagine that happens. Now the Hawks have 2 top 5 picks in the draft, and then at 8 you can still get something pretty good at that point. And then Detroit ends up at 5, which is not horrible for them. Of course, they're the worst record in the league, and maybe a guy like Zachary Versailles could have been good. But again, with the way this draft works, at 5, I don't think they're in a bad position at all. At that point, it's not like last year's draft where if they missed out, they'd be like, dang, like they're still in a good position. I think at 5, Charlotte ends up at 6. Then you got Portland gets 7, so Portland's gonna have 2 lottery picks as well, 7 and 14, which is interesting to bring in some more young talent in there. The Spurs, again, the Grizzlies end up at number 9, which is not a bad pick at all for them. Jazz end up 10, they get to keep their pick. Bulls end up 11, the Thunder end up at 12, and the Thunder have another lottery pick to bring in, and the Kings end up at 13. And interesting stuff. Shout out to the Atlanta Hawks, I guess, taking number 1. And yeah, that's going to be it for today. Hope you guys enjoyed. Once again, if you enjoyed the content around here, consider subscribing, turn notifications, all stuff like that. Really appreciate it. Really upset a lot. About to go watch these playoff games. So, yeah, see ya.